What color brick should I put on this house? I've been asking this question for years now. If I put red brick on the house, it will never go out of style. Red brick is a timeless classic. But white brick looks clean and crisp and new. What about a gray brick? It would match the gray stone base and it would fit with the castle look. I was thinking about these colors when I went down to the local brick plant, where I found out all of the bricks are red. Where I live, if you want non-red brick, you have 3 options. Option 1. Pick the exact color that you want and pay a premium to ship it here from very far away. This is by far the most expensive option. Option 2. Pick the cheapest, smoothest red brick and paint it with what's called a lime wash. This is a budget-friendly option. Painted brick can look really good, but it also looks modern to me, and I prefer an older look. Option 3. Pick a red brick with a colored slurry baked onto the face of the brick. This is done in the factory, so the brick retains its traditional brick look. I chose this slurry-covered brick. There are only a couple of these gray factory-painted bricks to choose from, so I ended up with a brick with a little more brown in it than I wanted. A little bit of brown is hard to avoid because mortar, the stuff holding the bricks together, is mostly sand, which normally is light brown. To see how much mortar color affects brick, take a look at these 2 houses. It was hard for me to believe, but these were both new construction and built with the exact same brick. The top house has mortar that's lighter than the brick, while the bottom house has mortar that's darker than the brick. Everyone will have their own opinion on which house looks better, but after seeing these 2 houses, I paid a little extra to truck in cleaner, lighter colored sand because I want to make sure that my mortar is lighter than the brick. And then I did a series of tests where I mixed different ratios of gray and white Portland cement. The goal here was to get the mortar as gray as possible, but still keep it lighter than the brick. Okay, we're ready for the brick masons. When the guys showed up, the first thing we did was start mixing the mortar. We shovel in the clean river sand. Follow that with a full bag of white cement. And then we cut the bottom off of a bucket to ensure that each load had just the right amount of gray mortar mixed in with the white. We did a quick check of the first mortar load, and it's time to find out if we got this light gray color right. I asked the guys to do a flush joint instead of a concave joint, which is what you typically see. This should help hide the red edges of the brick. It also removes the shadow lines that you normally see with the recessed style brick joints. The goal here is to cover as much red as possible and give it an older look. I think I would have enjoyed trying to do this myself, but this mortar dries in about 90 minutes. Less than that on a hot day. And as you'll see with the scaffolding, if you want to avoid wasting entire batches of mortar, you need a crew. It was a pleasure to watch these guys work. All 4 men were in constant motion, each performing his part of the job with a minimum of verbal communication. These 2 guys here must have thrown hundreds of bricks in the air, and I never saw them drop a single one. As the bricks stacked higher, it became more challenging to get the bricks in the mortar up onto the top levels. I wanted to say something about this scaffolding. When I got the estimate, there was a pretty big price attached to it. But once you see it on site, you understand that these are significant temporary structures they have to build to support piles of bricks, side by side with mortar and 4 men walking around on different levels. I spent a good time walking around on this scaffolding myself, and it was rock solid. Don't get me wrong, there was a few things that I think I would have done differently with how they anchored them. But they figured out a way to overcome every obstacle. The narrow side yards and the steep hill, and the curving front stair. To put brick on the turret, the guys first wrapped it with black tar paper, then attached this metal netting and mortared a smooth surface over that. Then we cut the faces off the bricks to create a matching brick tile. We placed the brick tile in vertical rows because the radius is too tight to wrap them around horizontally. I'm not 100% sure these brick tiles are going to stay in place, but I didn't have another solution for this type of cylinder shape. Here's an interesting thing I learned about these factory painted bricks. When you pour water on them, the slurry color turns transparent. I guess when it rains, this house is going to turn hot pink. Before the brick masons could finish the job, I needed to install the front door. To start us off, the delivery truck dropped the door off technically on the property, but about as far away as possible from the house. Normally that's not a big problem, but this thing is a beast. It is 7 foot tall, solid core, made of a dense teak wood. I tried to drag this casket-like crate, but it did not budge. So I pried it apart. I summoned every ounce of strength I had and hauled it over to the house. Any self-respecting castle door has an arched top. So what you see me doing here is framing in an arched opening. I then cut back the building wrap and wrapped the opening with zip tape. I used a generous amount of caulk at the door sill plate. It was time to wrestle the door into the opening. I then temporarily tied it into the framing with decking screws. Later, I would come back and hide the screws behind the weather stripping. To firm things up, I knocked in a few shims. To my surprise, the door was perfectly balanced. So I installed the door handle. And that's it. I had one final piece of the exterior left to do. You may have noticed that this west-facing wall doesn't look like the rest of the house. That's because this is the side of the house where I had to cut off a couple of rooms to save money after the 2020 inflation spike. So I'm installing siding here because it'll be easy to remove when I do eventually build the rest of this house. To install siding by yourself, you need a tool like this, but these cost about $50. So I'm going to make a similar tool from this Simpson framing tie. These cost $1.18. This LP siding is pretty straightforward to install. As usual, the challenging part is the height. My scaffold wasn't quite going to get me to the top. Luckily, the brick masons were packing up and they saw me struggling to reach the top, so they quickly put together their big scaffold for me. The next day, they came back and said that they needed to take their scaffolding to the next job. This would have been bad news, except that they jumped in and helped me knock out the last bit. Before I show you the final drone shot, I wanted to share something that I learned. Cleaning up all of the broken brick pieces and leftover mortar is not part of the brick mason's job. A builder friend of mine told me that this task falls to the cleanup boy. Now, if you're looking around your job site and you don't see a cleanup boy, that means that you are the cleanup boy. Building a house is a series of compromises. This brick wasn't my first choice. But when the sun's right, it looks sorta gray. I do think that we got the mortar color right. And if I squint my eyes a little, it does look a little bit like a castle. In the next video, we build a 20-foot tall spiral stair in the living room.